Hello. Today we're looking at essential question number 4. What kind of organization could be used in these form of writings? And the form of writing we're focusing on is poetry. For the last time, we're going to look at organization number 1, which is create a poetic structure that helps to develop your ideas. We're going to look at 3 different poetic structures. First one we're going to look at is an ode. To define an ode, you may want to get this note in. An ode is a poem that praises or celebrates its subject matter. And within your reading class, you did get some experiences with an ode, and I am going to turn to a video that I completed last year on ode to kind of go through what an ode is with you. I'm going to read it ahead of time because within this video from last year, I actually already we had read it ahead of time before the video started. So this particular ode, which you read in your English or reading class not too long ago, is as follows. Ode to Enchanted Light. Under the trees, light has dropped from the top of the sky. Light, like a green latticework of branches, shining on every leaf, drifting down like clean white sand. A cicada sends its sighing song high into the empty air. The world is a glass overflowing with water.
And more of a free verse structure. It doesn't matter how you set up your stanzas in an ode. It doesn't matter whether you have a specific rhyme scheme in an ode or whether you don't have a specific rhyme scheme in an ode. It doesn't matter if you separate stanzas in a certain way for an ode. The only thing that matters with an ode is that it's called an ode because it deals with sometimes serious themes, maybe justice, truth, and beauty. But what it does is it praises or celebrates its subject. Okay, so in Ode to Enchanted Light, we are praising, we are celebrating sunlight and nature. So the whole piece just is really focusing in on praising and celebrating sunlight and nature. So it, 1, connects directly to your message or theme, and 2, the whole purpose is to praise or celebrate the subject matter. You could make it celebrate a person. For example, maybe you'd want to create a ode to your best friend, or an ode to your favorite teacher, or ode to your favorite Hollywood actor, whatever. You could create an ode for an event. So, ode to the NCAA Final Four championships team, or ode to the Super Bowl. You could create an ode to a thing. So maybe it's an ode to a particular activity you love. Ode to football. Ode to cheerleading. Ode to musical theater. Ode to Fortnite. Or you could do an ode for an element in nature, just like the author did. Ode to sunshine in Western Pennsylvania. Whatever you ode to the beach. Odes, though, the focus is on praising and celebrating whatever your subject matter is throughout the whole piece. Again, that's the only requirement for an ode. There's no specific rhyme scheme. There's no specific rhyming pattern. But ultimately, as you're praising or celebrating an aspect, you should also consider what message are you conveying, because it usually deals with a strong message as it's praising or celebrating an aspect of a person, people, thing, or event. Any questions about odes?
So there's a little background on the ode element. Another one that we're going to talk about today, or the other 2, is free verse and lyric. Again, this is still the same learning target. So free verse. It's a type of poem. It's actually, free verse is a very broad category. So it's a form with no formal structure or no specific rhyme scheme. So in other words, a free verse can rhyme, but there's no clear specific rhyme scheme from the start to finish that it falls under a specific order. A free verse does not have to rhyme, though, because it doesn't have a really clear formal structure to it. So your stanzas might not all line up in the same number of line requirements. Your rhyme may be there in some lines, but it may be there in none, or it might not be in any throughout. So free verse is a very big category. The example we're going to look at today from my video from last year is a free verse, but it's also a lyric. A lyric is a subcategory as well. A lyric is a single speaker expressing personal thoughts and feelings. So a ton of different types of poems could be considered lyric poems. Song lyrics, obviously, we call songs lyrics or song lyrics because it's a single speaker, usually a single singer, expressing their personal thoughts and feelings. A lyric could also be a free verse because it could be a single speaker expressing personal thoughts and feelings. A lyric could be written as a sonnet. A lyric could be also written as an ode. So lyric is not necessarily structural. Every other aspect, when we talked about structure or types or categories of poems, we talked about organization in regards to specific things you must do or must not do structurally. Outside of, obviously, free verse is a structure that has no structure, so there's a little bit of irony in that. But a lyric is sort of the broad category that all of these structures could fall under, because all we're looking for is a single speaker expressing their personal thoughts and feelings. So we're going to look at a poem that is in fact a single speaker expressing their personal thoughts and feelings. It's a lyric, but it's a lyric that is set in the structure of a free verse. So go ahead and pay attention to this.
With that, we're going to look at Sleeping in the Forest, which you guys already looked at multiple times.
In your reading class.
This poem, you can tell right away the author sort of chose the way that it's going to look on the page. And when you read it, you notice there is no specific rhyme scheme. It says, I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed. Nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they floated light as moss among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in the water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning I vanished at least a dozen times into something better. So notice there's no clear rhyme scheme in it. The author determined how they wanted their lines to start and end. It still takes a nice poetic form. You notice that because it's not set up in paragraphs, but there's no clear, strict structure. That's what makes it a free verse. So you may want to decide to submit for organization number one, as a free verse structure. Or maybe you want to do a lyric where it expresses personal thoughts and feelings. Maybe your lyric might have a repeated chorus, like song lyrics, depending on how you want to set it up. But you may now submit for organization number one, looking at lyrics and free verse.
And keep in mind, I know that I have met with someone today, and they wanted to submit creating a poetic structure, but it wasn't, in fact, one of the areas that we've covered yet. So make sure you're able to explain to me what your poetic structure is if you decide to submit for organization number one. We've talked about 5 distinct poetic structures, so you want to make sure that you're able to identify which of the 5 you're actually submitting for when you choose to submit a type 3 for poetry. And remember, you need to pick 3 specific learning targets under both research and literature and submit a type 3 for each before the due date for type 3s and 4s runs out. We only have a few meeting lessons left. I think 2 more meetings left on the rotations. This 9 weeks have gone quick. So make sure that you're submitting a type 3 for poetry and a type 3 for research. And then you get to decide from there which you want to pursue for publication. So go ahead and get working on your poetry today. I would consider what structures that you want to submit for, and make sure that you are submitting and practicing the different structures that we've covered in class, as well as maybe some structures you're figuring out on your own. Go ahead and get writing.